The beginning of Chapter 11 greets us with an inscription. Welcome player. Next we see Sun Jun-woo, who wakes up in horror and doesn't realize what it was. If it was dream, then he realizes that he is in the hospital. Next we see people in black suits. Sun asks who they are. One of them holds out a card and talks. We are from the surveillance department of the National Association of Hunters of the Republic of Korea. Sun does not understand what they want from him. Then he learns that he slept for 3 days, and he starts asking what happened to the others. One of the agents says they're fine. Hunter Song Jae-il has lost his arm and is likely to retire, and Jun-hee is still in shock over what he's been through, and it is not known if she will recover. When the agent finds out about Kim, Sun says it is enough. The agent goes on to say that only 6 people survived, and that even in a world of hunters where danger is everywhere is rare. The agent then said that when the task force entered the cave they saw nothing but Sun's body lying on the altar. Sun says it's impossible. The agent says they wouldn't have believed it themselves if it wasn't for the fact that everyone's testimony came together and that they found body parts, and that's why they think Sun went through the wreck. We are further told that the power of the hunters is manifested by awakening, but sometimes they do, so they awakening a second time and can raise their level. Next, we are shown a device called the detector of the magic power, and Sun must put his hand on the crystal. Next, in the agent's mind, we see his reasoning about what, given what they heard about those monsters, only hunters of rank or S could handle them, but the monsters simply disappeared. It is impossible not to think that the hunter Sun Jae-woo went through a trial. At that moment, the result of Sun's power was shown. She was equal to 10, although even the weakest he was 70, and they decided they suspected for no reason. Then they got together and left. Sun got a little upset, and I was surprised that the agents didn't know about it. And then we see a screen with the player written on it. Next, Sun realizes that the agents can't see the screen. He then realizes that his leg is in place and there is no wound in his chest. He doesn't understand where the dream was and whether he should tell the agents about the screen. Next, the girl asks what Sun is doing and whether his head is passed. This girl is Sun's sister. She screams and says she's worried about him and doesn't want him to get hurt. Sun can't believe he almost left her. At this point, a message arrives on the screen. He asks Jin if she sees anything. He asks if there are messages in the game that have not been read, how to read them. Jin asks if Sun has hit his head, and he says he has to open the mailbox first. Sun utters the phrase and reads unread messages. The inscriptions say welcome player and the task of becoming stronger. Jin goes on. Sun starts reading messages. Next, an inscription will appear on the screen. The system will help the player's development. Failure to complete tasks is followed by punishment. Your rewards have been received. Sun doesn't understand anything. Sun Jin-woo remembers seeing this screen when he was on the altar. He then looks at the inscription, becomes stronger and says check. Then a list of exercises that the character must perform pops up on the screen, and at the bottom there's an inscription with the chess about punishment for not doing the job. Sun says it's a joke and that he has no strength. Then go to bed to sleep. At this point the clock gradually turns red and the screen informs that Sun is going to the penalty zone, and around it begins earthquakes, and Sun Jun-woo finds himself in the desert. At that moment, a huge monster appears behind him. Poisonous giant sandy centipede. On the screen appears the inscription of a free quest, and according to him, Sun Jin-woo's mission is to survive within the specified time. Next we see him running away from the giant centipede. Next, we see that there are 7 seconds left on the timer, and already at the last moment when the monster almost ate Sun. He returns to the room and the inscription on the screen says that the quest has been completed. Next, we see Sungji's tired face, and there's an inscription that he should be rewarded for completing a free quest, and then the button to accept or not appears in front of him. Next, Sun passes out, and the nurse in the room sees this and starts screaming for help. Then we see 2 nurses talking about Sun Jin-woo, and one says that he's always running, even though it's only been a couple of days since he woke up. And the doctor says that hunters recover faster than normal people and that exercise really helps. The nurse says if it's a light exercise then fine. Sun goes on to say that it's been 4 days since he woke up and there are a few things he's learned. The first thing before his eyes is not an illusion. And we see a message that Sun has completed a run of 10 kilometers. Sun further reports that although no one sees the screen, he clearly sees it. Next we see that the given for today is executed, and on the screen there is an inscription restoring the status, and an offer to accept or refuse. Sun says take as a result that all his strength is restored to the level it was before all the training. In addition, there were prizes in the form of boxes with various random improvements. It was also possible to download for points. Sun Ju will become stronger when he downloads the character's stats. So will he when he raises the level. Status, skills, inventory, all like the character of the game. Sun says he's interested in what's going on. Next, we see Sun's statistics as a character. Then Sun Jae-woo asks to be given time off from the hospital, since he has business outside. Next we see him holding something in his hand, and he says it's time to figure out what it is. We see a description of the key that says that they can create a dungeon and that it can be used at the 3rd station of HAPPJUNG. Sun says, all these status reward quests are all because of the double awakening, or else it's a procedure for a double awakening. And if that's the way, it's worth a try. The world's weakest gets a double awakening. Other people will laugh if they hear. Sun then says that he is sure of the ability to escape and that if it becomes dangerous he will run away. Then the key begins to be sanctified, and we see the portal open and Sun Jai-woo enters it. An inscription appears on the screen. You enter the established dungeon, and he saw the man standing next to him walking through the wall like it didn't exist. This is another dimension, Sun thought. Sun says that he has never seen such a dungeon and that he cannot escape because the exit is blocked. The inscription on the screen says, "You can't leave the dungeon until you kill the boss or use the returning crystal." Sun says he's only been fighting the E-Grand monsters for a few days. Now he has to clean the dungeon. There were terrible noises coming from the dungeon. Sun knew he was expected to handle it without a team. He says he doesn't even hope. Sun Jun-woo continues to follow the station's empty and creepy corridors in an alternate dimension. And Sun says that with each step his confidence decreases. He starts to feel a strong stench. This means there are animals nearby. At this moment, Sun is attacked by the red wolf. At the last moment, Sun manages to dodge. For Sun, a couple of goblins would already be a challenge. How do you defeat a wolf? After that, Sun's foot stops moving. Sun realizes it's out of fear. There are no wounds left from the dungeon incident. The wolf attacks him, but Sun is gone again. Sun realizes that because he doesn't have a healer, you can't get hurt. At this time, Sun continues to dodge attacks, and realizes that his body is very light. After that, he says that he has only just recovered and is not going to escape. Sun Jun-woo says that he will not die in such a place. His hand is enveloped with energy and he beats the wolf, from which it flies away. Sun realizes that it seems he has boosted his strength, but the wolf is still stronger than him. He attacks the wolf again with a scream, but the attack no longer works. Sun knows what. Monsters are not affected by normal attacks, and even this mob is stronger than him. Sun realizes he has no healer, no equipment, and that to win he has only his body. Next, Sun Jun-woo wants him to have a weapon and he remembers about the inventory. He shouts the inventory and the screen appears. Sun puts his hand in it and takes it out. He doesn't understand why the sword is there. He cuts up the wolf. That was the sword Kim left in the dungeon. Inscriptions appear on the screen. You have defeated Riken with a steel blade. Your level is elevated. Sun recalls what Kim said about buying a $3 million sword. Sun would not have been able to touch him before. Sun realizes that the inventory thing is useful and wonders what else he can store in it. Sun says that since he has a weapon, he is no longer afraid. There are two wolves standing in front of him. Sun cannot pull out the sword stuck in the ground. The wolves have almost bit him, but at the last moment, Sun pulls out the sword and cuts one wolf, but the second grabs the sword with his teeth. He's got steel teeth for a reason. Sun says he can't let this sword disappear. He rips it out of his mouth. Then he cuts the wolf in half. Sun says that compared to those monsters you are too weak. Wolves begin to retreat fearful. Next, we see Sun Jun-woo's performance on the screen. Sun realizes that with the level up, his performance improves by 1 point. For daily quests, you get 3, but for a level raise, you get 5 points. So it's better to hunt on monsters. How strong I am becoming, since even my intellect and perception are increasing. Sun thought, the power is the easiest to understand. She rose by 10 points, but Sun already felt the difference. Sun realizes that he can become stronger because of his improved performance. Sun Jun-woo then realizes that there is no magical core. Nevertheless, since these creatures are created by the system, they do not fall kernels, but objects. We see a wolf's fang falling off the wolf. Sun sees that the screen even has his own store, where you can buy and sell items, but he can't buy anything yet. However, he sells the fang and gets 20 zlotys. Sun Jun-woo doesn't know much of it or not because it's a game of will. Although if it's an E-rank dungeon, it's hardly much. Sun says he can't leave until he kills his boss. However, he is not yet able to defeat Boss E of rank. Sun says that if he raises the level he is likely to succeed. Next, we see a wolf behind which to glow a lot more eyes. Sun says he has already died once and rushes into the attack. Sun begins to slaughter the wolves and tells them that they will not wait for mercy. Next, we see Sun cutting wolves and pop-up elevation signs. Sun realizes that if he stops, he will die. He won't be able to protect those he cares about, and he'll lose everything. So Sun won't have to do it anymore. And if it helps him to get stronger, he will follow the rules. Another sign about raising the level. The already exhausted Sun sees a new pack of wolves, and he gets the title, Killer of Wolves. Sun sees that the sword has blunted. After all, any weapon is not durable. Even high-end weapons lose their strength after cleaning up a couple of dungeons. Sun recollects that he once bought a 50,000 won dagger, and that it was easier to hunt with it, but the dagger broke immediately in the fight with the boss. That day, Sun Jun-woo only got 3 crystals, and he was struggling to make ends meet, so he didn't buy any more guns, and I fought hand-to-hand in spite of the wounds. Next, Sun says thank you to the sword because it helped him. Next, we are explained. The Wolf Killer title allows you to accumulate experience 40% faster in the fight against animals. Sun has accumulated in the inventory 34 wolf fangs, 2 old dagger traveler's clothes, and a stone of return. Sun holds the stone of return in his hand and thinks to return. But he knows it's not, because when he can still get it right. He thinks he'll get it if he uses the stone. Most likely it will just disappear because it's just a dimension created by the system. Though on a retreat in the end, Sun puts the stone in the inventory and goes on. He then battled again, raising levels, and with each new level, it became easier to fight monsters. And not only did he kill wolves, but he killed other stronger monsters. Sun Junwoo was definitely stronger. Sun understood that monsters in this dungeon are constantly reborn as mobs in a regular game. Monster actions resemble a combination, and if you accelerate it, then you can understand where they attack from. So from the top, monkeys and cats on both sides. Sun started killing monsters even more efficiently. It noticed that the monster's strength determined its name color. The white is weak orange strong, and the red is very strong. So if the name of the wolf was red, then it is white now. So Sun became much stronger. But even with renewed vigor, Sun was not sure that he could defeat the monster below. Sun had a chill on his skin. It is possible that thanks to the improved perception level, I can determine the level of strength of the monster. It looks like the level is no longer rising, and the sword could break at any moment. When Sun realized it, he went down the stairs. It seemed to him that the staircase had become longer. It was exactly Hapjung Station that asked Sun, seeing the water on the floor. In addition, noticing a silhouette in the shadow. This monster quickly attacked Sun Junwoo. Moreover, threw Sun into the wall. The sword broke. Sun said that although he thought he had raised the level enough, but the monster's name was still orange. Lord of the Swamp is a blue rascal with poisonous fangs. Sun realized that it was a dungeon, and he intercepted the rest of the sword. Sun knew that the sword would not pierce the scales of his boss, and conventional attacks would not help. At that moment, the serpent began to attack. Sun Junwoo realized that he needed to strike accurately and quickly, and before that, find a gap in the defense. But how can I pierce the scales? While the snake continued to attack with its huge body, almost killing Sun. Sun said that even though he was stronger, he was still not enough to stop being called the world's weakest hunter. Next we see his memories. In them, Master Song told Sun that this is his name and that he should make more effort to get rid of the nickname. Sun shouted that he already knows his level, and knows what is a terrible force that makes everyone bow. I was ignored because I was weak, and even if I was thanked in the face of power, you can easily be betrayed. That's why I have to become stronger. I came here to be stronger. I thought Sun Junwoo during the battle. The snake threw him into the wall again. Despite that, All Sun stood up again and said, I want to be stronger. Sun said that compared to the horror he experienced in that dungeon, this situation is nothing. Sun threw himself at the snake again and even grabbed it from behind his head. He put all his points on top, and squeezed the snake so that it hurt. In an attempt to throw Sun, the snake struck him against the ceiling, and Sun had already relaxed his arms, but in the end squeezed them even more with a cry die. He squeezed his hand so hard that the snake bled. Next, we are taken to the hospital, where the doctor asks where Sun is. The nurse says that since he will be released soon, she let him go for a walk. The doctor goes on to argue that why people go to low-ranking hunters and that he dreads them when they get to the hospital. After all, even people who are in an accident look better. He goes on to say that compared to ordinary people, hunters are monsters incarnate. Then we fart to Sun again and we see the battle marks and the graffiti on the screen about the rise of the level. Afterwards, the puffed-out Sun says that he has become a little stronger, and we see him near the snake's corpse. Then we see the artifacts that fell out of it. It was a dagger and poison. The dagger was made of fang, not bone. The attack was twice as good as the effect of paralysis and bleeding. While Sun was talking, this screen reported that once the boss is dead, everything goes back to the way it was. The dungeon began to disappear and Sun quietly walked to the surface. He was approached by a surprised soldier who asked him, How did you get out? Didn't you hear the news? Sun asked what happened. The soldier looked at Sun and asked if you were a hunter. Sun answered yes. The soldier invited him to follow him. Sun did not understand what was happening. There were traces of destruction and corpses of monsters. It looks like a gate opened nearby. Sun asked about the monsters. The soldier replied that all the monsters had been dealt with except one big man. Sun realized that through perception he could sense the monster, and he saw a blue light in the distance. It was definitely the boss. Then we see the monster. It was a huge, shining monster with which many hunters fought. At this time, the soldiers fenced the perimeter and asked civilians to disperse. At this time, people resented the slowness of the hunters and the fact that the destruction of the land will fall. One of the hunters asked the healers to treat the tank. Next, we see Junhee, who realizes that if they turn away they will never be able to return to their lives. Sun realizes that even after a week she has not overcome fear. Just like me, but I have to overcome it. Sun Junwoo decided by squeezing the sword. Sun analyzed the situation and understood. It was the boss of D rank compared to the previous one, he was one weaker. If he could break through the defense. Sun started swinging his sword. He was going to throw it. He threw it with all his might. At this time we see a panic of hunters who do not know what to do. Because if a high-ranking hunter does not come they will lose the tank. And at that moment, Sun's sword hits the monster's eye. Everyone rejoices at the attack. The monster begins to crumble. The hunters continue to attack. As a result, the monster died. While everyone rejoices at the victory, the tank does not understand what killed him. After all, no attack worked before. What blew up his stone head? Then he saw Sun's sword and wondered how it could have punched this monster. Who threw it? Tank asked the soldier who had thrown him. The soldier said it was a hunter. He began to look back and said he had already left. The soldier said that it looks like it was a high-ranking hunter. At this point we are shown Sun. Sun says that he seems to have made a mistake in the monster's health. Next, we see Junhui who has seen Sun, and we see the Sun Junwoo statistics. Then we are transferred to the hospital where very charged Sun Junwoo performs the exercise. He was interrupted by a nurse who told Sun that he was being discharged. At the same time, she clearly fell for his updated appearance and even asked for a phone number. Sun thought it was to report the test results. After that, we find ourselves in Sun's apartment where his sister Song Jin was going to school. The Song Jin noticed that Sun had pumped up and even gotten taller for what he said she thought. After putting an umbrella in her briefcase and saying goodbye to her, Sun looked at the screen, which reported the daily task. Sun said the only way he could really get that much power was by pumping skills. Maybe I added too many points to the strength. What would happen if I continued this way? Sun thought, representing a jock. Next, Sun began to talk about the relationship of characteristics and their connection, and that you need to balance in the pumping. After all, every ability is important. Each of them is linked by magic, decided Sun, and then distributed the points between the characteristics. Then the phone rang. It was the apartment tenant who reported the outstanding payment. But knowing Sun's situation, he was ready to postpone the payment. Sun said he didn't have to and he would find the money. Having finished speaking, Sun decided that because of the second awakening he would have no difficulty getting the money. At this rate I will be able to become a hunter of the highest rank. However, it is necessary to enter the dungeons of high rank to have a high rank. And on the dungeon of low rank is always a great competition and earn there much more difficult. That's why grand hunters don't get into the guild, because it's hard for them to find work. Hunters are selected through competitions, and that's where I got my nickname. They apply for television with the story about the hunter sharply increased his rank, so you can quickly get fame and money. But other hunters will become jealous and will try to find out how it happened. And I'm not ready to reveal my secret yet, decided Sun. But first I have to earn money. And then Sun came up with an idea. Next we are at the construction site. There Suna meets a hunter named Hwang Dong-suk. And when he introduces himself, he asks what rank Sun he is. Sun replies that yes. At this time, one of the hunters standing next to him recognizes him and says, Sun is quite a famous person. And remembering his nickname with another hunter starts to laugh. Dong-suk says it doesn't matter because they care about quantity. Dong-suk says, as mentioned earlier, they'll take care of the cleanup and they only want Sun for the quantity. Sun is paid a fixed $2 million. He asks Sun to sign a contract. Sun sees a group of 5 degrees Celsius rank hunters and 4D rank hunters. In the C rank dungeons there was a rule that to enter it was necessary to have at least 10 people, half of which would be C rank. Next, Sun was approached by a man who said he was just like Sun the newcomer. He introduced himself. My name is Yu Jin-ho, is 22 years of grade D. Sun, having examined his clothes, immediately realized that in front of him a man in very expensive equipment. Sun thought you were the sand billionaire. He then asked Woo Dong-suk what to do. He said his job was to carry things. Sun asked where the healer was. Dong-suk said they always go without him. Sun understood that without a healer, he wouldn't even have a chance to blame someone in case of an emergency. And it's risky. One of the hunters called out to him. He told Sun not to think about anything because they would take care of it. Dong-suk said it was time to go inside. Yu clapped Sun on the shoulder and said he would protect him in case of something. But Woo soon just made a sarcastic face. And they're showing us Sun's stats again. Then they all move out as a group. Dong-suk says Kenju hasn't been quiet lately. The construction site they've suspended. Yu is telling us that the construction director has run off with the money and the builders and sponsors are having a hard time. Sun was very tense with the chatter. Yu asked if it was difficult for Sun to carry things. Sun answered no, because he made these things very easy for him to do. Yu asked if Sun was always so silent. Sun replied that Yu talks too much. Yu says he's usually ignored and hunting is just a hobby. Sun is angry with him in his thoughts, realizing that he has a rich son in front of him. Dong-suk says they are in place. When they saw the gate they were all hit by their size. One of the hunters even wondered if it was the C-rank gate. Dong-suk said that he saw people going in and out. Yu was asking Sun, I wonder if we'll be alright because the gates are so big. Sun asked if this was the first time Yu. He said that size does not matter, the main magical energy coming from them. A guild first determines the amount of energy, then determines the rank. Large guilds deal with the high rank gates. From rank C the rest of the guilds. Dong-suk commands us to follow him and everyone enters the portal. Meanwhile, Sun is once again surprised at the D rank for such good equipment, and he asks you to go away from him. He also knows that the rest of them have excellent armor, and this is very different from his usual dungeons. Once inside, they see nothing. One of the hunters lights up a light. Before them is a dungeon full of tunnels. They say it's weird that there's no light at all. That he usually has at least a couple of glow stones. Meanwhile, Yu continues to question Sun while he asks him to be silent. Sun listens. He understands that since it's dark in here, monsters prefer the dark. And if ordinary monsters in the dark would be hard, these lean on their sense. Move flocks live in the dark and go to light. Sun shouts that they are insect-like monsters. Everyone agrees and understands that this is so. But so far they see nothing. And there are too many tunnels. Sun screams over us and heaps of monsters start to crawl out. Ants-like. One of the hunters shoots them with a magical attack. But still some of the monsters fall to the floor. Dong-suk calls the attack on himself and commands the others to attack as well, and all the hunters begin to act.